Carswell is the UKIP MP for Clacton. What did he make of John Major's intervention?
He talks about it being high risk to leave. I would suggest that the really high-risk thing to do is to remain in a failing bloc that's lost control of its monetary affairs, lost control of its migration policy.
But he's right, isn't he, that it would be acrimonious if we split up. They wouldn't let us go easily.
Once we voted to leave, Europe's still going to be there. We're still going to be Germany's single largest export market. Last year we had a £50 billion trade deficit with Europe. That means that they sold us £50 billion more stuff than we bought off them. They're the principal beneficiaries from trading with us, and they're not going to do anything to harm that. There's a very good proposal on the table, Article 50, that would allow us to negotiate the terms of withdrawal very sensibly. It would allow us to have what most people in this country want, a trade-only relation. We can have a trade-only relation with Europe and not the political bit, and the way to do that is to vote to leave.
He said something else which you might agree with, that Mr Cameron's renegotiation is not critical to this debate.
It is fairly critical, actually. I've been looking at some polls recently, and they're pretty even Stevens, but I noticed that a really significant number of people listening to this programme haven't yet made up their mind. And a lot of them have been told by Mr Cameron to trust him on this renegotiation. And if he doesn't actually manage to achieve any significant difference... Look, if
you won't change your mind, will you?
If the European Union's second largest member is threatening to leave unless Europe begins to talk seriously about change, then what chance is there of them ever changing? John Major talked about splendid isolation. There's this lazy phrase with which the Eurosceptics keep on being attacked. There's nothing insular about wanting to be in a position where you can elect a government that decides how you're governed, where you have sensible control over your borders, like Australia and many other countries around the world do, and where you're free to open up genuine free trade agreements with the parts of the globe that are growing. There's nothing insular or extreme about any of that.
But John Major is a former Prime Minister. He's had huge experience of running this country and dealing with Europe. People will listen to him, won't they?
Isn't it incredibly significant that they're having to rely on an ex-Prime Minister who came to office over a quarter of a century ago to make the case for them? With a few honourable exceptions like John Major, there are very few advocates of staying in who don't actually have a vested interest in the Brussels gravy train.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.